This video acts as a guide to explain the new patch of Enigma's dynamic Cold War campaign server. This is our first major patch since we dropped version 2 and includes a lot of changes to the core campaign mechanics as well as some new features. We will go over all of that today, but please note that this video is a primer. All details should be found in the FAQ. The easiest way to bring it up is by typing !FAQ in our Discord server. If this is your first time here, this channel focuses on multiplayer sim gameplay, so if you're into that, please subscribe. With version 2, we built a system where all player actions were all combined together and added up to an overall effect, and introduced the hex-based system. We were really inspired by the BMS campaign system, but in trying to recreate it in DCS, we ran into a few issues. The first and most important one is the weighting of the map was very difficult. Player skill is all over the place in this game, and trying to figure out how much supply should be produced relative to how many ground units were killed was very tricky. Additionally, we found that the tasking engine was much smarter than we expected, and this was confusing to players because the tasking engine was really good about figuring out how to distribute resources. Lastly, we found out when giving players a lot of freedom in being able what to do, the competitive ones really ignored everything and went for the path of least resistance. One of the big things that I believe is really core to the success of our server is to put players in a box and limit options. I'm a firm believer that in DCS, with how the game is, if you add too much freedom, that people get so competitive that they will destroy the environment for the sake of winning. You can see this happening in other servers when people sling unlimited manpads to defend areas. Players do that, and then it becomes impossible to fly. To combat this, we tried to work on things, but in doing so, we realized that we did not have the time to manage the players, the campaign rules, and also the tasking engine. With version 2, we wanted to make things easier to manage, to insulate our time. While the feedback on version 2 was really positive, we decided in build that we would actually not do a patch with the tasking engine, but actually without it. The objective of this patch is to go back to the formula of putting players in a box and insulating our time from having to weight things appropriately and having to manage the tasking engine. Now that the table is set, we can jump into the changes. When a campaign begins, each side gets a total army that gets equally distributed across the front. Every 2 hours there's a calculation, and it compares the health of the front line. The side with more frontline health wins, and they are favored to push. A winning side needs to have a default 15% difference in health in order to push. If they have a 30% advantage, they will capture 2 sectors. The sectors that get taken are dependent on their health or how many units are left. The weakest ones get taken. If there is a tie, then the server randomly picks. Destroying enemy depots will reduce this default push threshold, so by eliminating depots, you can build up a bigger push. Factories will impact how many units spawn after a calculation. By eliminating factories and infrastructure, you can reduce the size of enemy unit groups on the front. This means that you will be able to make your entire side's effort stronger, as you will need less munitions to kill unit groups. Additionally, attrition will raise the threshold needed to push. If your side is consistently not RTBing, then you will make it harder for your side to push. Helicopters have a lot of features added back. The first, Caesar. In your F10 radio menu, you will have an option that will let you see all the nearest Caesars. When you get close to a downed pilot, regardless if it is friendly or enemy, they will deploy flares to make it easier to find them. Landing or hovering next to them will make them bored, and then you can return them to a FARP. Saving downed pilots will reduce the attrition on your side. Capturing enemy pilots will also do that, but there is a random chance that when you return them to a FARP, they will give you intelligence and recon targets for enemy infrastructure. As far as I know, we may be one of the few servers that uses a credit system where players can generate credits to give them the ability to do something. We are increasing the way players can generate credits. Before, it was only by killing ground units, but now you can generate credits by doing Caesar, killing frontline targets with infantry inserts, recon by fixed wing or helos. All of these actions will now be rewarded. Now that players can generate more credits, we want to increase the cost of the credit planes. While we wait for the F4, we want to make sure that we limit the use of more capable missiles. Additionally, one of the points of the server is to give light to the planes that typically get ignored in multiplayer. So the cost of accessing these credit planes is dramatically increasing. These planes are supposed to feel rare. They are not supposed to be constantly on the server. They are special assets that should be seldomly used. Along with other additions, we have added a splash damage script. This will make using non-popular weapons like iron bombs more viable. In short, what the script does is that it changes the blast radius of weapons. We are really excited by this change, as this should make some planes more viable in air-to-ground, like the A4. Lastly, we have installed a new EWR bot, which replaces TextLord and Overlord. We hope that people like these changes and understand where we are coming from. Ultimately, we are not a professional video game studio. There's only so much time we can put into this because we are hobbyists, and this patch is a reflection of our bandwidth, of what we can support, and also our attempt to flesh out the server to make it a fun place to play. This may shock some people, but we recently broke the 22,000 unique player number on the server. There are a lot of you. Let me know what you think about these changes below, and if you would like to support, please subscribe, as this channel acts as a mouthpiece for the server. Thank you.